Matt Plummer. When did you move to Reading?
A little over 7 years ago,
You
2016.
started a company.
So, well, the first year I didn't. I was working for a nonprofit and worked remotely for the first year. And that what we did is we'd basically go into a nonprofit. We'd help them figure out, what are you doing that's actually effective? What are your goals? Like, what do you want to hold yourself accountable to? And then how do we help you grow to meet the need? And so we would think about, how do you structure an organization? How do you get sustainable funding? How do you measure your performance to know if it's actually working or not?
I see.
And so I was doing that the first year. And then when I was flying a lot. And so after we decided, hey, we're going to stay here, I left that and decided to start a company here.
And so the first thing I wanted to bring up was you had like a list of 10 things that you had sent in this email that I was reading over.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like 10 pillars, 10 commandments, whatever you want to call them, of how you would want to operate the board, not operate the board, but kind of see things clear up. So talk about that and my question to you really there is, do you think that's your main priority if you were to be elected, is to kind of change the culture?
I mean, I would say that that's one of three main priorities. So the first priority is to, what I've been saying since the beginning is that we have enough challenges and opportunities that we can all agree exist, that we should focus there and make real progress there. I think that, nationally, statewide, and to some extent locally, that the contract between people and government is kind of broken. And what I mean by that is that, we pay taxes to the government and we expect a benefit in return. And I think largely people are like, okay, I keep feeling like I'm paying more and I don't feel like I'm getting a benefit from it. And so how do we fix that? We need to demonstrate that the government can actually deliver a benefit to the people for the tax money that they're paying them. And so that's a key priority. And there's a number of those challenges: homelessness, crime, mental health, addiction, wildfire, drought, right? That are pretty much true kind of anywhere you go in California.
Yeah.
And so that's a top priority. And then number two is we need to get the county government functioning effectively and have them be accountable to the community to deliver results. And so, I think in our community, some people are like, we want limited government. And I'm all for limited government, but two things I would add is that a limited government that's not effective is not helpful at all. And also that the key to becoming a limited government is to be effective, because the more effective that the government is, the more limited it can become, because it removes the need for itself. And so right now, in a number of ways, and I can describe this if you want, but, our county government as an organization, and this is what I do for my day job, is train companies and help companies become effective, is not functioning very effectively. And then the third priority, to your point, is that I believe we need to create a culture of respect and collaboration in this community. And that's in part because people don't want to live in a place where there's constant recalls, where people are yelling at each other, calling each other names, where they feel nervous. And this is what people say to me when I talk to them. They feel nervous to talk to their neighbor about anything of any consequence, because they worry that, oh, what if they lash out at me, or, would they have a different opinion? And that's not a place where people live. And it also isn't a place where we can actually get stuff done, because the challenges that face us are tough, and they are going to require all of us, or at least a large portion of us, to come together and work on them. And if we can't even talk to each other, we have little chance of being able to make progress on those.
How do you take down Patrick Jones, a guy who's been in the city government, whether it be county or city council? He's been involved for a long time, whether you like him or not, but he has been. He's been around. He's a face people know, and he has a business that people go to frequently. How do you go about taking down a guy like that?
Well, I think actually his experience and track record in government is actually his greatest liability. Because what I hear from people is the number one issue is homelessness. Well, he's had 11 years to address it, and during that 11-year time period, what has homelessness done in this community? It's increased by over 500%. And so why give him another 4 years to fix something that he's had 11 years to fix and hasn't been able to? It's the same thing with the jail, right? He's had a year to get the jail open, and it took a year, and it took the city council members from Reading, Shasta Lake, and Anderson coming to the board meeting to even get it on the board agenda. So the fact that he's been around long has demonstrated that he hasn't been able to make progress on the issues that people actually care about. And the other thing is that, people, one of the number one things I hear from people when I go around knocking on doors is, we just want a sense of normalcy and order restored to the government. And, whether it's his fault or other people's fault reacting to him, that's topic for debate. But what seems to happen when he's in a leadership position is that it stirs controversy and there is contention and divisiveness. And so, people have seen that, and people are tiring of that. It's been 3 years of this back and forth, and it's not just one side, it's not just one group, it's the kind of, that animosity. And people want government. A lot of people just want to go about their daily business and not have to think about government. They just want government to function kind of in the background and take care of the things that they're supposed to, and them not to have to worry about it. And right now you can't do that because they have family from wherever calling and say, hey, I just saw Shasta County's in the New York Times, whatever else it might be. And so, but people want just things to function and them not to have to worry about it.
And that brings up a good point. For you, when you hear something Shasta County Supervisor related, someone brings it up, where does your mind go at this point? Do you just assume the following sentence is going to be like, did you hear the crazy thing that happened? That's kind of where we're at now, right? Where when we talk about Shasta County Supervisors, it's never something that is a positive.
Well, and I think, it's disappointing because there are key issues here. I mean, we have one of the highest suicide rates in the state. We have one of the highest rates of child abuse and neglect. We have one of the highest rates of domestic violence, and I could go on, and there's probably 5 more of where we are among the worst. And those are the things that we want to be talking about, that we need to be talking about. And because the conversation is so dominated by these other issues that are really mostly distractions from these core issues, we're not actually able to make progress on these things.
Right. Why decide to run now? How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
So I'm 36.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a young guy with a background helping other political campaigns. You've been in Reading for approaching a decade now, so you feel comfortable, obviously, in that sense, in knowing the community. But yeah, what about now makes you want to do it?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I worked on Alex Shea's campaign for Reading City Council. And so when that election was over in November, then I was kind of reevaluating and saying, okay, is there another candidate that I jump in to support, or do I take some time off from the political world, or do I run myself? And for me, the main motivation for getting involved in politics in the first place was that I saw it as an increasingly important lever for influencing the community, both from a policy standpoint, in that as I looked around and looked at the state, because that's where the first campaigns I worked on, felt like, okay, from a policy standpoint, we're saying that we're trying to achieve things like reduce homelessness, but actually the opposite is happening. So seeing a need for different type of policy solutions. And then also from a cultural standpoint, seeing that culture flows down from political leaders and seeing like, okay, this is creating a divisive culture that is actually undermining the social fabric of our state and our community. And so my main motivation was, okay, I need to get involved in government because it's a key lever for this, and there's 2 kind of key challenges there. So then as the election ended in November and I was looking around at different candidates, different races that were going to be happening, it felt like there was a real need for new leadership in Shasta County, some real challenges that we're facing that are not being addressed, that are, we're not making progress, and that actually align pretty well with my background and professional experiences. So, I think a key piece of it is, whether you like it or not, like the county government, a large portion of what it does is deliver social services to people. And my background working with nonprofits and helping them become more effective and helping them grow to meet the needs that surround them actually is well suited for figuring out what is it that the county's doing that actually is effective, how do we grow that, and then how do we then phase out the things that are not effective. And then my background as starting a company that trains other companies to be productive and effective, use critical thinking, I feel also that as the county government, we need an upgrade in effectiveness. And so it felt like a good fit to address those 2 key needs that the county was facing. So, I think, first of all, that I get people's concerns about Bethel. And just so I want people to know that I'm not like blind to the fact that people are concerned about it. And, I think anytime there's a big organization in a smallish town, like there is some concerns about it. What are they trying to do? So one, I'd say that, I'm not running to represent Bethel. In fact, when people say, oh, are you going to advance Bethel's agenda? I'm like, I'm not sure what Bethel's agenda is in the community. But also, like, as I think about both what motivated me to run and what I think qualifies me to run, it has nothing to do with me going to church on Sunday at Bethel. It has everything to do with my professional experience. And so I would, invite people to, one, raise any specific concerns that you might have. Like if you're like, well, you go to Bethel and therefore I'm concerned about this. Like, let's talk about those specific things. But also, as you think about, who you want to be supervisor, look at, their professional experience and what they've done and whether that's a good fit for this job. And so that would be what I would encourage people to do as I think about it.
And then a final thing here, kind of just giving you the floor in a way. A lot of people might not know who you are. This might be the first time they see you and hear you speak. So give me your best, I'd like to say, sales pitch. Give me the Matt Plummer sales pitch of why you should be the future District 4 supervisor.
Okay. So I think there's three things that, anyone in the community I would love for them to know about me. The first is that when it comes to addressing the challenges that we face, that's kind of, I have a background in that. I've worked with nonprofits to help them figure out how to be effective. And, I think I can bring that experience to the county to figure out what can we actually do to address the problems of homelessness, to address the problems of crime and mental health, and make progress on those. Number two is that and some of this I've mentioned in other ways, but number two is that in order for the board to accomplish anything, it needs the government under it to accomplish anything. The board can't basically do anything on its own, right? It's only in the extension of the county government, and so we need the county government to function effectively. And one of my top priorities will be working with the county to establish publicly published goals for the county. Because if we don't have goals that we're trying to achieve, then how do we allocate a $560 million budget if we don't know what we're trying to achieve? And that is what I've had experience doing with nonprofits, foundations, kind of all around the country, is helping establish goals that then they hold themselves accountable to, and that then the public can hold our county government accountable to. And then number three, what I've said throughout the campaign is that I will talk to anybody, I'll meet with anybody. And I think what we don't need a so-called establishment candidate, a far-right candidate, a far-left candidate. What we need is someone who's going to represent all of Shasta County, who has experience in all the different worlds across the political spectrum, and who is going to invite opinions that disagree with them. And that's the basis. I teach companies critical thinking, and that's the basis of critical thinking, is that you need to not only be open to opposing viewpoints, but you need to seek them out, because that's how you get to the best ideas. And so, my perspective on how to operate in the county is to actually bring opposing viewpoints together, create a forum for civil debate about those, because I believe that's how we'll get to the best ideas that will actually make progress on the things that everyone cares about. And so if that's what you feel the county needs, then I would say that's what I have experience doing and what I would hope to do in this county. And I think we're a unique community up here. It's kind of a special place nestled in Northern California, and we're not trying to be like anybody else. Like, we have a unique identity here, but we also have some severe challenges that are holding us back, whether it's homelessness or crime or child abuse, domestic violence, mental health issues. And so we could be, a better version of ourselves, but we need to make progress on those things. And I believe we're capable of doing it, but we need the right leadership in place to be able to actually point us at those things, and then to get our county government in a place where it can really make progress on those.